So going into this demonstration today, as I said, we're going to be looking at a couple of bonus packs. We've got the invoice generator and we've got the stage payment generator as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a job that I've done previously. So I'm just going down this list. I can see that this one here, £45,721. It's a nice one to start with as long as it loads up for me. Okay, and what we're going to be able to do is we're going to be able to see the resource rounding and how that works as well. Okay, and now we've got that loaded up and ready to go. So as we can see on the right hand side, we've got a construction cost of about £45,721, the profit and overhead, and then we've got our sales price as well. And that's everything before VAT. All right. Over on the left hand side, we can then start seeing our outputs, and we've got our main estimate as well. So the first thing I personally want to go into will be the resource rounding. Now, if you're part of this demonstration, you already own the software and you've been through these processes, so I don't want to inundate you with loads of information about how we would get to this cost before coming up to our reports. Okay, so I can just click on the main estimate on the left hand side, and that's going to start detailing the breakdown of our job. Okay, so we've got our pie charts next to all of our setups, so we can see the site setup is quite astronomical in this job. Okay, because I think I went into a lot of COVID details in that as well. Okay, what you might be able to see at the very top of the screen is you've got to recalc the job. So essentially, you would click this if you had given this price to a client, they'd waited 3 or 4 months, prices have fluctuated, especially now. Okay, so you'd come into this and you'd say, look, by the way, I'm just going to recalculate the job. Click this button, and what will happen is the software is going to tell you what the change in price will be. Okay, if it's gone down, I vote you go with the original price, but that's just me. Might be called mercenary for that mark. But if it's gone up, definitely go with a higher price. Okay. Next to that, we've then got our resource rounding. So this is actually a recent update that we've had within our software. So some of you that have actually stood the test of time and stayed with EstimatorXpress, you've seen the transition we've made from being on Office, where every other day there was an update and the software broke, okay, to what it is now, which is actually a reliable piece of machinery. However, one of the biggest questions we ever got, and even when I started with this company 9-10 years ago, was why is it telling me that I need 1.7 rolls of tarp? Why is it telling me I need 1.2 bags of sand? Why is it charging me for 1.2 bags of sand as well, when that's not a relevant thing that would happen? So what we've done is, and it's taken 20 years, but we've done it, we've made a resource quantity rounding option. So if I click this here, what's going to happen is it's going to tell me you appear to have already rounded my resource data. I'm going to click yes. So obviously I did this in a previous job, okay? But it's just going to pull in what it's doing for me, okay? Okay, here we go. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the rules applied in job. Okay, what this does here, it tells us exactly what materials we're going to be using and how our rounding is going to work as well. So the main columns you're going to need to be looking at are these ones here. Okay, quantity required, that's just telling you exactly how much should be used, okay, in an exact amount. Next to that, quantity including wastage. So we've bumped up your wastage as well, or it will apply the wastage that you've stuck onto your materials. Okay, from there, you can then see the rounding adjustment that we've done to go up. Now, sub-base, we're starting at 9.24 bags. Now, depending on the kind of builder that you are, you might want to stick with 10. You might even want to just stick with 11 just to make yourself sure. Okay. However, what we've done is we've gone from 9.24 bags exactly up to 12 bags. Okay, now whether or not you're going to be happy with that is entirely up to you. But what could happen here is you might think, you know what, I'm just going to be happy with 11 bags. Okay, you can click this box here and you come to 11. You can even come to 10 if you want to. And this is the price it's going to be shaving off the cost of your job. All right, now going through this list at the very end of your estimate will take about 5-10 minutes, because what it's going to do is just going to tell you where it's rounding. Now, more often than not, it does it quite nicely. But if you look at the pea gravel, say, that goes into a world of its own, really. If I took away that manual entry, it takes it from 5.6 bags up to 8. That's a lot of pea gravel for the sake of a job. okay? Especially when, by the time you get past the pipework itself, you can start putting a little bit more hardcore down some dirt in that as well, okay? As long as you've got that pea gravel covering, you know the deal. Okay, so you can just go through this list and just make sure that everything's okay. Once you've done that, you just go to the main settings and you just click this Add Resource Rounding button. Okay, and that's going to just set the rounding for you within your job. To be able to see how this now has integrated into your quote itself, if you go down to your outputs, the report I want to show you, I'm just going to click outputs, it'll make more sense. The report I want to show you are materials by type. Okay, because what I can do there is if I click open, it's now going to break my material down for me. So firstly, it's going to tell me, okay, this is my aggregate. I need blue circle match grit original cement all the way through to my sub base. Okay, this is how much I'm paying for it as well. And this is how I buy it in, so each, as it were. I can go along, and now we've got exact numbers. So we've got 55 bags of blue circle match grit original cement. And that's going to come in at £214.54. Now, the likelihood that you order 55 bags of blue circle match grit original cement is unlikely. Okay, if you do at the very beginning, you're a brave person, especially if you don't know where you're going to store it. Okay, however, what this is doing is it's not going to break it down via build phase for you. Okay, but it's just going to give you lump sums. Now, some of this is going to be quite accurate because what you're going to want to do is that if you're looking at a brickwork shell, insulation blocks, solid dense concrete blocks, and your trench blocks, you're going to want that in one lump sums. Okay, you can see that you're going to need 55 square meters of solid dense concrete blocks. Brilliant. Okay, you don't need that broken down into, oh, you need 13.8 square meters here, 22 square meters there. Okay, it's just making your life a whole lot easier. All right. And with this type of a report as well, you can print this one off, and then essentially you can just say, okay, then 55 bags, brilliant. You can start scratching everything away, saying, okay, then we've ordered 5 bags, 10 bags, 15 bags, and so on. And by the end, you get to the end of a job, you can see that if you have said yes, and the software's calculated for, say, 55 bags, but you've only had to order 40 throughout the duration of the job, you can see that essentially you've saved on 15 bags of cement, which then would work out at, here we go, £54 or something, roughly about that mark. Okay. Before we jump on to the other bonus pack, does anybody have any questions about the resource rounding and what reports that can help you out with? I'll let you type on the right-hand side. By the way, if you have any questions about any other parts of the software, any other bonus packs as well that we have, or anything else you'd like to see calculator-wise, again, fire them in there. I'll be more than happy to answer these questions. Okay. Just going to wait a little while just in case anybody is typing. Okay, no questions. Brilliant. So we can start moving on to the stage payment calculator and the invoice generator. Okay. So if I go back to the outputs, you're going to be able to find these reports on the left-hand side here. I did actually have a question come through from one of the viewers, obviously. How many retailers are we dealing with at HBXL? So the 3 main ones we're working with are Travis, TradePoint, and Keyline at the moment. So any account numbers that you have with these merchants, give them to us, we'll contact that merchant and we'll get your pre-existing agreements with them put into the software so that all uploads. All right. We used to work with Juicens as well. However, Juicens bought out a competitor and essentially took our competitor off the market. And to be honest with you, it's actually worked out to our benefit, if I'm totally honest, because they've dropped the ball a little bit. Okay. However, that doesn't stop us from being able to work with the materials and the costs of your local area. Okay, because what you can do is you can sit with the technical team. Okay, as long as you've got a material price list to work to, we can use that and get it into the software. Okay, and this is part and parcel with your support as well, because what we want to do is that there is a part in the quote, in the software that says favorite merchants. Now that's there because we want to be able to work with your merchants and we want to be able to get their prices in our software, really. Now, essentially, if you are working with a large merchant that we don't work with, okay, if you can give us your contact with that person, what we can do as well is we can try and get them into the software. We're always trying to get this bigger. We are working with a few merchants at the moment to try and get their prices in. Okay. Unfortunately, due to GDPR, I can't say their names right now, but they are large merchants. All right. And we are trying to make this roll out as fast as we can. All right. So back to the bonus packs. We've got our stage payments and we've got our invoicing. Now, if I click into the stage payment calculator here, terribly sorry. What you're going to be able to see from the get-go is our quote on the 1st, the 2nd, the 9th, 10th, 11th, 13th, 19th. Now, this is probably a stage payment option that you will most likely not use. This setup anyway, when it is the start of the end of build phases. Only because if your client doesn't want to be paying you essentially every day. Okay? So what we can do is we can start bundling this together. All right. So on the right-hand side here, let me just zoom that out again. On the right-hand side here, we've got the option of taking a deposit. Okay, so if I click that one there, I can click the deposit date, say it's going to be today, and I can set that as anything really. Now, we work with a company called the Better Business Group. All right, now the Better Business Group will always recommend that you take a 20% deposit, or at least a deposit before your build. Okay, it's best practice, standard practice at the best of times, because as you know, the horror stories about everything that goes on TV, there's always shows about the cowboy builder. Okay, there's never anything about the cowboy client. Okay, and it's because what can happen is they can say, yes, brilliant, I'd love to have this job. You set that up, you've got a 3-month benchmark for you to be able to hit as well, so you've worked your ass towards it, and then unfortunately, they pull out. And you've got no money to cover you for that, and now you've got to go on the fast track of finding work to pull into that, or potentially pulling a build forward. Now, the likelihood is you might have a client that goes, brilliant, we can start early, that's great. But if that's not the case, and your client has got to do a few more things before you can start that next job, that's put you into a bit of a bind, and then your guys are looking at you, and you've got that responsibility, and that's because of a client that's done, then you might have a little bit of money. At least for the deposit, if anything does go wrong, or if you do buy any materials to start this particular business, of this particular build, you're not losing any money. And I'm terribly sorry about that cough. Okay, so we recommend that you take a deposit as well. If anybody wants to know about the Better Business Group, just essentially just type in that you would like to hear from them. What they do is they can actually set you up with work as well. They're like Check a Trade, okay, Trust to Build It, things like that, but they actually do work on the higher end, your multi-thousand-pound builds, anything from your 30, 40, 50,000 pounds extensions to your multiple hundreds of £1,000s builds as well. And they're there to help you, okay? And you can speak to them through us and you get deals as well, okay? From there, you can then go down to the billing frequency. As at the moment, you can see the 1st, the 2nd, the 9th, the 10th, it's a nightmare. You'd never do that to your clients. So what we're going to do is we're going to change that to either days or months. So you can say, I want to get paid once a month. And if you're going to do that, I can say that it's going to be from, again, today. All right. We can then start having a look at the build phases charging methodology. You can click this here. Entirely up to you whether or not you want to be going material, labor, plant, subcontract, and sundry. So what we're saying here at the site setup, we want to get paid at the very beginning of the start date for the material, but we don't mind at the end of the day to be paid for labor. So we're going to be paying labor at the end of the week, okay, at the end of the month, depending on what you want to work with, okay? And we're just going across that with every build phase, really. Beneath that then, we've then got inflation, retentions, defects, liability period. Now, this is as a standard a 6-month liability period. I don't know what builder in their right mind would give 6 months. At the end of the day, the longer you leave it, the more faults that they're going to cause and then choose it saying it's your fault. Okay, so we can drag that down to 1 month, 2 months, depending on how confident you are with that particular client. And then what we also have the option of doing as well is, well, taking this price and adding it with inflation as well. Now, what will happen here is that just make sure you've clicked adding the inflation to your original cost. Okay, because if you add this after giving them that cost, the price will look different. Okay, and you don't want to come back a couple of days later if they go, yes, I'm happy with the job. You go, brilliant, I'm going to add inflation, and the price has gone up a couple of £100 or a couple of £1,000. You don't want to look, you don't want to be that guy. Okay, but you do have that option as well if you need to. Then we've got the interim bill retention and final bill retention as well, and you can just bump that up to maybe we're going to end it on a 20% payout as well. Okay, lastly, you've got your VAT settings, charge VAT on payments, obviously at 20%. I mean, even if you are doing a new build, the likelihood is you do round it at about 20% anyway, okay, even though they do fluctuate. And then you can click apply the changes. So we're seeing that our first date of the 1st of the 2nd, 2021, 30th of the 9th, these prices here as well are going to change. And we see that our payment schedule to every month has now changed. Okay, so what we're saying is that we're going to have 4 payments, okay, 5 payments, 1 as a deposit, 1 as a defects liability period, and 3 covering us for the job. And you might be happy with that. If you're not happy with that, you can then break it down into weeks if you want to, or days. And I can say I want to get paid every 7 days. And then I can click apply changes as well, and that then goes on with the job as well. So we now have not evenly split prices, but it's going to be covering you for the job as well. Now, one of the many questions that we get at this point is, why haven't you just taken that £75,098.38, just rounded it down to 75,000, which at the end of the day, most builders probably would. Okay, you might just go, oh, you know what? It's either going to be 75,000 or 75,100. Okay, depending on what you want to do. But why haven't you broken it down into 5, 6 equal payments or 7, 10 equal payments? Now, the reason behind that is because what could happen is, if you're doing equal payments, you can come to the middle of your job where it's saying it's needing 10,000, and then you've got 10,000 near the end as well, and you're not getting enough money to cover you for this point here. Okay, so you might undercut yourself if you do even payments. You might not, depending on how high they are and how frequently you want those changed up. But we just want to make sure that you do have this option available as well. And through a quick study that the Better Business Group have done as well on our behalf, okay, clients actually respond a lot more to exact numbers than whole numbers, only because they don't know whether you've rounded up. And the likelihood is they're always going to think, 75,000, it was probably 72 and he's gone up. When the likelihood is, if you've gone at £75,098.38, they're going to go, I don't see any rounding here. Where would you have rounded that? And you haven't. Okay, so it's a psychological thing, as it were. All right. Linking into this and into your reports as well, you've got on the left-hand side the cash flow report. So if I were to click this here, it looks something like this. Now, this is for your accountant at the end of the day, for them to be able to have a look at. They've gone through that industry for a reason. They enjoy the numbers. Okay, so what you can see here is on the 27th of the 1st, I'm going to be having £14,268.48 going into my account. What we're then going to have is through buying material and paying our staff, we've got 2528 going out, and then what's going to be left, what's going out, what's coming in, and so on. Okay, so we want to make sure that this is being covered as well. It's something for you to be able to use if you want to. It is built for an accountant at the end of the day. I mean, whether or not you're happy looking at something like this and you can reference it, it's entirely up to you. But it can be quite powerful, especially if your client and your accountant says, by the way, there are some anomalies here. We need to have a look at what's happening on the 16th, or we've had £1,700, £1,800 go out of your account. By the way, what was that on the 16th? Can you remember? Okay, so you can at least look at what was going on. All right. And that is the end of the stage payment option. And this is all completely transferable to Excel if you want to. Okay, if you wanted to transfer the stage payment over to Excel and then do an algorithm to split that quote and that cost into 4 or 5 equal payments, you can do that as well. It's entirely up to you. All right. Do you have any questions about the stage payment calculator? I do have a question to go back to as well, but I'm just going to ask if anybody has any questions about this, and you can type them in the meantime. Okay. I did have a question about any chance to work with Selco. Okay. Again, we can't exactly name drop because essentially, if we did, we'd have people knocking on our doors going, by the way, you said Selco, I work with Selco, what aren't you doing with that? Okay. What you can do is if you ask them for a material spreadsheet, okay, again, speak to one of our guys in the technical team, they'll be able to help you out. That shouldn't be an issue. Okay. With regards, if you are working with Selco, if you have a dedicated person that you work with, a rep or someone like that, get them to get in contact with us because they'll want to have that option of being able to be in our software. It's actually 2 merchants, don't get me wrong, they're being used up and down the country no matter what, but Travis have found us to be a whirlwind to work with because people are seeing our prices, they're seeing that it's Travis prices, and a lot of them are going, oh, you know what, I could probably just get with Travis and just see what's going to happen in that regard. Now, I know Travis can be a pain in the arse, and you can argue with them over a quid at the end of the day, but when they're one of the largest in the UK, sometimes it's just what you need to do. Okay, so again, if you can tell us who to go through and who to speak to, we'll be happy to go after that person. All right. I can see that nobody's actually asked any questions about the stage payment calculator. I'm going to just take it upon myself to say that I've done a hell of a job explaining this. All right. And you know what? Speak of the devil, somebody just came in with a question. So can the software do a 20% deposit and equal stage payment with a 5% final payment? Unfortunately not. No, that would actually be a very nice feature. However, after the deposit amount, okay, it's still going to break it into essentially build phases and such. Okay, so unfortunately we can't break it down into equal payments for you. However, that is something that from the sales team where I sit, it is something that we have asked for because it's a question that we get when we're in demonstrations as well. Yeah, absolutely. And it is the Better Business Group's normal routine of going through that as well. Somebody did start typing a question. So I'll just wait a few minutes before I go into the invoice generator. I'll click the invoice generator anyway. It's just a simple page. Okay, I'm going to circle back round to, can 5% retention be charged for a fixed figure? Unfortunately not, no. When you're looking at our stage payment option, there is no fixed figure amount that you can stick in there. Again, it's something that we are, from the sales team, we are trying to gun for. However, right now, it's not something that's easily usable, as it were. And I'm terribly sorry about that. Looking at the invoicing software, okay, now our software does work with the likes of Xero and Clipit, which used to be called CIA accounting. Now what we can see here is we've got to the very top our settings. So if I click this, over on the right hand side we've got our prefix, our next number as well, depending on where you want to stick this invoice number. The reason behind this is because if you are going through multiple jobs, okay, you might want to have them have their own particular number for the accountability of your accountant as well. Okay. From here, we've then got your company registration number, so you can pop that in there, and your company registration address as well. Okay, and then any payment terms that you have in there. So this could be your account number, short code, depending on how you want them to pay you. It's entirely up to you here. Up at the top, we do have something that says Manage Templates as well. So I can click here, and what you'll find is that we've got typical template options. If I click Edit, you're going to just see in grammatical format how it's going to be broken down. It's not giving you a view, it's just giving you a my details, contact detail, customer details, and so on, all the way through to your payments terms. Okay, I can click yes, and I can be happy with that. Okay, so it looks something like this. Now you might be happy with that, you might not be. So what you can do is you can go away and you can have a look at another invoice. Okay, and these are just ones that we have for you. If you've got your own setup, you can import them as well. It's entirely up to you. Okay, so I'll just go back to that original one. Once you've done that there, we can hide the settings. We can start creating an invoice. But what we can do is if you do own the stage payment option and you've gone for the invoicing as well, you can use your stage payment deposit as well. So as you can see here, we've got that available and we can start creating the invoice. All right. And as you can see, it's saying, no, we haven't invoiced this yet. We can use estimated invoice date if we wanted to, but then we've got from the stage payment information, from valuation, or we can start entering in the value of the invoice manually. Okay, so this is where you can take more control over the lump sums of what you would like to get paid. Okay, depending on what you would like to do. Once we've done that, we can add in any notes that we want. And I can select the deposit from the very beginning. I can click create. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to see this and preview this as well. And it's going to give us this. Okay. Doesn't look too spectacular because we don't have any details on it that are going to be specific to us. Okay. So as you can see, we've got invoice here, HBXL. You can tailor this to how you want it to look. Okay. As you've seen previously. And then you'll have your payment terms and any notes about this particular job as well. You can tell them why you're taking a deposit or something like that. Once you've done that, we can go back to the invoices and we can start creating our second invoice as well now. Okay. And this one looks a little bit more detailed, but not too much at the end of the day. Okay. And it's numbering them for us as well, which is handy on the left-hand side. Once they have been paid as well, you can just come here, you can select them as paid, and that way then you can always come back and go, right, okay, then what has been paid and what hasn't. Because if you start sending out invoices and your client goes, oh, by the way, yeah, no, I will get back to that, I will do it. We all find those clients. Okay, what might happen is you've gone through a bit of a build, and just because you're trying to get this ball rolling a little bit more, you might lose track. Okay, so you can just come back and go, right, okay, then 3 or 4 of these payments have not been paid, I need to go to the client or I'm going to need to stop work before they actually give us some money. Okay, hopefully you don't have a client like that at the end of the day, but they do come with the territory, sadly. Okay, and that's how you can start building up your invoices. What you've also got on the left-hand side are your credit notes as well. So what I can do is I can start looking at my settings as well, again, for my credit notes. This time I want to go down here. And what I can see, if I start looking at that, we've got that in place as well. Okay, it's entirely up to you, or you can go with the one that's non-VAT, depending on what you want to do with your client. All right. Going back to your invoicing, you can always do this as well. All right. And that is the invoice generator next to the stage payment calculator. I've just had a question come in. So what happens if you're paid different sums to what is illustrated on the invoice? Essentially, it really depends on how you want to go about it as a business. It might have been pre-agreed with the client. However, if they're paying you less than what's on your invoice, essentially I would turn around and go, look, I cannot commit to go any further until you pay me the full lump sum. Or have that when you are creating an invoice, go from a custom amount, and then what you can do is you can choose the date, you can put in the lump sum that you have agreed. So if it was going to be £800, say, what I can do is I can input VAT description, bathroom, as it were, and then I can create that as well, and that'll be my invoice instead. Okay. Do we have another question? Have we included interest on late payments? That would be essentially in your terms and conditions. We don't want to presume that for you. Okay, so it's not something that we have in the software as a standard, because the last thing we want to do is have you accidentally click a button that's going to add on a fee and your client's going, what's going on here? Okay. Now, the likelihood that you have a buildup of work, you would probably want to have late fees coming in as well, because at the end of the day, you need your build to kick off. So if you've got 3 or 4 jobs lined up, the likelihood is you don't want to be slowing down on the first one, okay, because that will then have a cascading effect. All right. But you can change the invoice prices. It's entirely up to you. And you can add on, if you were creating your own note as well from a custom, you can say increased fee. I don't know why I'm writing that. Late fee at 10%. And we've now got that. If it was £900, it's going to be £990. And that's going to be for the RADs, just for the sake of it. Okay, so you can then do that as well. And then when you go into the premium, what's going to happen here is on your notes down at the bottom, you're going to be able to state that you are adding in a late fee as well. Okay, but that's part and parcel depending on what you want to work with. All right. Does anybody have any more questions about the invoice generator? Right, okay then, it seems to be quite quiet. This is when I'm just going to open up the floor now. You can ask a few questions about any other aspects of the software if you have any questions about that, as long as they're not too intricate, or if you're asking me to go into the backgrounds of the software to tell you some coding information. That's not where I'm here, or what I'm about really, but what I can do is I can answer a few questions about the software itself. Okay. So firstly, for any reason, if client doesn't deliver on time, could there be charges for waste of resources? Absolutely. Again, that's something that you can write into your terms and conditions. You can have that in your contract as well with your client. Okay. Again, these are things that we do not want to presume. All right. In our contractual software in Contracts Expert, we do have within the contract telling your client that if there is a refusal to pay, that you have direct ownership of materials until they give you their sum of money. Okay, so say they asked you to buy a new front door and they only paid you half. In that contract, you are stating that, okay, then you're not getting the door until I get all my money. Okay, and that is stated within our contract, and that contract is legally binding as well. Okay, next, how does the software tie in to Clipit? Now, over on the left-hand side, what we do have is at the very bottom, we've got CIA accounts export. What would happen is you would click this option. Now, I don't have CIA on my computer, all right? But what you'd be able to do is you'd be able to start dragging out the level of detail. Now, I know it's saying CIA construction industry accounts, but as you can see next to it, we've got Clipit solutions.co.uk, okay? I don't know whether or not they've actually changed CIA to Clipit now. Under rebranding, I'm unaware. But what we can do is we can start pulling out by resource, whether it's going to be simple information, well, there's full detail as well, build phase, simple and full detail. So if I were to go to build phase, we can include inflation if we wanted to. I can click export. If I just click save to that, what we can do is we can pull out that relevant information, and then what will happen bear with me a second, I'm just finding out where I've exported that to. And unfortunately, as I don't have the software, it's not going to be able to show me anything. So I can't show you what it's going to be looking at when you've exported this information to a format that Clipit are going to be able to see. Okay, so I am sorry about that. Okay, but the information is going to be similar to what you would be able to see under your invoicing or under your stage payment options that you want to start exporting cash flow to Excel, or whether or not you want to do a rich text format or something like that, really. Okay, so you can export all this information. Terribly sorry about that. I don't know why that appeared. But you do have that option available as well. So can variations be handled with the software as they can start from day one on the site? Yes, you can do variations within the software. Believe it or not, Tom does some one-to-one training when it comes to variations. All right. And to be totally honest with you, with the way I would go about it, it would probably just, it's a very slow process when I do it, in all honesty. So I would definitely say Tom can help you with that, and variations are something that can be dealt with within the software. Okay, all you would need to do is just phone up the technical team, ask for Tom, give it I'm so sorry about this, give it a few 10-15 minutes, and Tom would be able to help you with that as well within the software. Could there be a guarantor for the client? Again, that's going to be agreed between you and your client at the end of the day. Okay, it's just one of these things where we wouldn't presume that your client's going to be using a guarantor. But this is something that you can write in. You can agree with them as well. You can have a solicitor write up that clause as well. That's not within our contract because we're hoping that your client doesn't need a guarantor for you to be doing the work. You could add that into the contract as well. Absolutely. Okay, so on our contractual software, there are spaces that you can add in verbally agreed clauses. Okay, something that you are going to be happy with to agree with your client as well. Okay. It's definitely worthwhile looking into our contractual software. I mean, I know at the very end this gives you something that you can sign off on. All right. However, for £199 a year, you are getting a legally binding contract to be able to use with your client as well. And it's, to be honest with you, it's definitely worthwhile. I thank everybody for turning up this evening. Okay, if anybody does want to get in contact tomorrow with regards to potentially trialing this software or even going ahead with it, I'll be more than happy to help. Okay, well, my name is Matthew Allen. Thank you for attending my demonstration this evening, and I hope you have a wonderful evening yourself. Take care.